Hi, I'm Melissa Howell with the Oklahoman, and I'm here with Cammie Kuykendall.
You got it right.
Pivot, not the action, but the organization, right?
Right, yes.
And we're going to talk a little bit about what you guys do, and you've just had this name change.
Yeah.
So first, tell me, what it's been around for a long time.
We've been around, yes.
So what is your history?
Yeah, well, see, on February 8th of this year, we celebrated our 46th year of providing vital services to the youth and families in Oklahoma County. So since 1972, we've been a resource for mentoring, counseling, life skills, helping kids really find their way. And our programs have grown since then. We kind of started with counseling. So at that time, early 70s, there's some really caring adults that came together and said, hey, these kids are kind of getting in trouble. There's really not much support for them. So we started with doing counseling with kids that were struggling and maybe getting into some trouble, making some bad choices. And then counseling is really at the heart of everything we still do today. But from that time, we've built programs like we have an emergency shelter to house kids that may be living on their own or in the foster care system and in between placement. So we provide that housing for them, but we also provide a network of services like counseling and life skills. So they get a chance to learn a lot while they're in our care and getting meals and safe shelter, making sure they're getting to school, helping them find jobs. We do that across the board. Right. We do a lot of mentoring, helping kids find their way, teaching life skills. When kids have lived in an unstable environment, they often haven't had the opportunity to learn some of those life skills that we've all had the opportunity to learn. So we plug in and do that as well. And so we just felt like after 46 years, it was maybe time for our own change. And Pivot, a turning point for youth, shares our philosophy. It tells the impact that we have not only on the kids that we serve, but on our community in general. So we're excited about that name change. It's been very well received for our longtime supporters, as well as people who are just learning about us. What we do is built right into the name. We literally are that turning point for kids that have been living in really hard environments, that they haven't had all the resources or even their basic needs met.
Mm-hmm. What does the landscape look like right now for at-risk youth? What are the issues? Because I know we talked about incarceration. We had talked about some of the things that are going on right now in Oklahoma, and it has an effect on youth. Yeah.
It really does. It's a challenging time in the state with when you look at everything from, and we didn't mention this, underfunded mental health services and the impact that has on us. We're a 501c3 nonprofit community organization. We do count on some level of grant and government funding, but we raise money from within our community to support our services. So when state agencies are limited, this need doesn't change, just because the services are compromised or underfunded. So we end up really looking to try to fill that gap because the need is great. It's continuing to grow, and so we design our services to meet that growing need. We incarcerate more women in the state of Oklahoma than any other state. Well, you think about that, a lot of those women are moms, and so when mom is incarcerated, what happens to the kids? Often kids are left to live on their own. When parents are deported or unemployed and just don't have the support to take care of their kids in the way that they would like to, the poverty rate, the economy the way that it is, all those things happening in the community has a direct and indirect impact on the kids that we serve. And they're struggling. The environment's been unstable. Many of them have been homeless or at risk for homelessness. They've been through a lot. They've been neglected, that sometimes they've been abused. They've just been really vulnerable to bad things that can happen to them. And they're still growing, they're still developing. So when those things happen, it really impacts their ability to develop in the manner in which they should, just even brain development. So we really have a strong focus on trauma and overcoming trauma for our kids. That's really the heart of everything we do. And once we begin that healing process, we can begin to layer in services like, let's work on education goals, let's work on employment goals, let's learn some of those life skills. So the combination of meeting housing and basic needs, because often kids they don't have enough to eat, they're struggling, their families are struggling, and then making sure they have a safe, stable place to stay, where they know where they're going to lay their head each night. Because if you can imagine being in school, you're in school, and you're thinking about what's for dinner, where am I going to find dinner, who I'm going to stay with tonight. it's really hard to focus on geometry, or it's really hard to focus on what's next for you or in your future. Our kids often, when they're living on their own or at risk for living alone, maybe they're in an unstable environment where they could be put out at any time or things could happen to compromise that living space for them, they're living in crisis mode all the time. So they're living crisis to crisis and always in survival mode. So when you think about what that looks like for all of our future, these are the adults of the future. These are the people that are going to be running our community and our state one day. And they're struggling to meet those basic needs, have a safe place to stay. So when we can intervene, give them that chance, meet their needs, but then teach them how to care for themselves, teach them how to meet their own needs, teach them how to finish school, how to get a career that's rewarding for them, but then also contribute something back to the community.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. When you were talking, I was thinking about trauma and how that follows you your whole life unless you can really fix that at that time and kind of.
Right.
So, what is your typical kid that you see? I mean, how do you intervene? Where is that kid? What is that kid doing, and what do you do?
Right. Well, the kids vary greatly, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
We have many kids that have been living on their own. Maybe their family situation, they couldn't stay at home for a variety of reasons that we've already talked about. So they might be what we call couch surfing. So they stay on your sofa one night, my sofa one night. So maybe their friend's parent let them stay there. Often, though, it's unpredictable for them, because you know how that is. Like if you had kids, your kid's friend stays over. Well, that gets a little bit old after a while, right? Because you want your family time. So something something changes with that family. Maybe they're struggling and they try to help out, but then that kid has to find another solution. So sometimes they're in those situations. Sometimes they have been in the custody of the state for a large part of their lives. When kids are in the foster care or child welfare system, just the nature of our limited resources, they get moved around a lot. And so when you think about that, there's already been something happen where they couldn't remain with their family. And then they get moved from place to place. So it's re-traumatizing every time they move. So they maybe have been in that situation. Sometimes they're going to school. We have had young people that are living on park benches, living in their cars, and still going to high school because they know there's something inside of them that's driving them for a different life. They just don't have the resources they need to overcome the significant barriers that they're facing.
So what happens when you intervene? What do you do?
Well, we start by literally meeting the kid where they are. We often will go into the community. We have a great partnership with Oklahoma City and Putnam City Schools where we'll go on site, meet with a young woman or young man, really assess what's going on. And sometimes, as you can imagine, if kids have been living on their own or they've been in trouble or some of them have been in detention and they've gotten out and they don't have that family support anymore, or they're going back to the environment that sort of led up to the choice they made that got them in trouble, and that's not the best place for them. So trying to create a different life is not as easy as it sounds. So we start by looking at them and figuring out what's going on immediately. So often they're in crisis when we get them, or they've been in trouble. So we start building that rapport and that relationship and connection between the kid and the service provider, our team, is vital. And so we start to build that trust and let them know we're here, we're with you. Then we figure out what's going on with them. Do they have a lack of basic needs, food, clothing, shelter? And we start problem solving around what does that look like for them. And it's different for each kid. We build a unique plan that meets their specific needs, because each kid comes to us with a very different experience, a very different current state, and a very different what's available to them in terms of resources and support.
Right.
So we assess and then we provide services that help meet housing and basic needs, help them meet education and employment goals, prevention, intervention, and then our therapeutic care that I talked about, the trauma recovery.
Right.
So as we begin to build that unique and individual relationship and plan for them, our staff start developing goals. Obviously our youth are a part of that. A lot of times I think as adults we get in this I know best and this is what you need to do. Well, we're here, hopefully we're wiser, right? Yeah. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we're wiser and we're there to help guide and direct, because we know there's certain things that are going to be better for them than others, but we want them to be a part of their own growth and their own development and process. So there may be things that they want to work on or they have as a goal, so we want to help them build the steps to get to that. Right. So as we begin to build that goal, we just work them through that process and help them do things like graduate high school, get accepted into college.
Sure.
Last year, 96% of our seniors that were eligible to graduated from high school.
Well, that was my question.
Yeah.
What does success look like? I mean, you know, the intervention that you do. Tell me what the outcome has been.
Yeah, well, that's, you know, for us, graduating high school is not the be all end all, but we also know it's a very, very important milestone.
Right.
And many of our kids are struggling to meet that milestone. As you can imagine, a lot of the kids that when we get involved with them, maybe they've been in school, but it's been inconsistent. If they've moved from community to community through the state system, or they've couch surfed, or they've lived with this family member or that family member, their community and school system has changed probably. So you get behind. So we have partnerships and we work with them to help them get caught up on school credit so that they are on track to graduate. And each kid is a little different. If you have a 19-year-old that is at a freshman level, it doesn't make sense to put that young man or young woman back into a high school freshman class. But there are some partnerships with folks like Seaworth Academy that will help them get caught up on credits and get them on track to graduate. But without the mentoring and the life skills and the support for housing and basic needs, it's difficult for them to achieve that.
Right.
So
but you had some really kind of amazing statistics that I looked at. Yeah, so tell me a little bit about that.
Well, like I said, about 96% of our high school seniors that we worked with this past year did graduate from high school. Something like 76% of them went on to be accepted into a secondary education, so into a college or university type setting. We have other kids that will go on to join the military or go on to go to technical school. Okay. Our kids that are working with us and they've been maybe in a juvenile justice system, we, while they're in services with us, something like I've got the number here, 96% of them don't reoffend while they're with us.
That's fantastic.
So we keep them out of trouble while they're figuring out, you know, getting basic needs met as well as learning those vital life skills. We want them to be an asset to the community. We want them to add to the community. You know, but they can't do that if they're not stable themselves. So becoming a self-reliant, self-sufficient adult is our mission for kids. Regardless of how they come to us, regardless of what decisions they've made, these are the adults of our future. They matter, and we believe in investing in them because what better investment can we make today that's going to be, you know, pay dividends to all of us tomorrow?
Sure. You talked a little bit you got a special project going on.
Oh, we do.
Tell me a
so
little
excited.
bit about that.
Well, thanks to the great folks at Impact Oklahoma, we were just terribly honored and so excited to be awarded a $100,000 grant. And what our project is going to be through the impact investment is to build 3 small or tiny homes that are on slabs on our campus. We have about a 28 acre space that we own, the land. That's, you know, where we deliver our services, our main office, and then our emergency shelter is there. This will build us 3 to start. Then our goal is to build a community of tiny homes to serve as transitional living for youth. As you can imagine, when kids are living on their own, very few people are willing to take a risk and sign a lease with a 17, 18-year-old, sometimes not even 19, 20, 24-year-old. So this will provide them with a safe, stable space where they can live on during a time of transition. So maybe they've graduated from high school, but they're still getting, you know, job experience, or they're waiting to go to school, or they're learning a trade, but they just need that safety net because they don't have that family support. I remember being in college and I was pretty independent. I always worked, but I do remember those moments where Dad overspent on, you know, that bailout, right? But I learned from that. Our kids don't have that safety net, you know, that lifeline to call and say, Mom or Dad or Grandma, whoever, I need this, or can you help me with that? So that's where Pivot comes in, and the services we provide are designed to fill that need and make sure that they have every chance at success. You always talk about kids are going to screw up. They're kids, right? Teenagers in general, sometimes they make bad decisions. Our kids, sometimes they struggle with that as they're learning. We want them to fail forward. And so this is an environment where it's safe, it's a secured environment. They have access to services 24 hours, 7 days a week through their counselor, through their mentor, through their life skills teachers, and their therapist. You know, getting that therapeutic care is vital for them. And they're living a new life that's filled with hope and a viewpoint toward the future. That's the other thing we love about Pivot, the name. It's action. It's a change in direction. And that's what we provide for kids, is they're heading down a path and they just need to shift a little. You know, they've got what they need in them. They just have too many obstacles with very few resources to overcome them. So we're so excited for this tiny home project. Thank you, Impact, so much, those of you watching, that they've invested in us. And you know, there's a really significant lack of affordable housing for people living in poverty in our state. And here in Central Oklahoma, there's just a limited, really, truly affordable housing.
Right.
Well, that's for families too. So imagine you're a teenager or a young adult, you're living on your own. That's another barrier that they face, is finding a safe, stable place to stay where they're not going to be kicked out, the funding doesn't run out, or they have to move after they hit a certain age. You know, our model is that kids won't want to stay in the tiny home community forever. They want to move on with their lives. They want to be a productive member of the community, have their family, go to school, have a career. This will meet their needs while they're growing, while they're developing.
Right.
While they have that shot to get that support and those needs met while they're figuring out that long-term plan.
Right. So if somebody wants to donate or to learn more, where do we go?
Yeah, go to our website at pivotok.org.
Okay.
Or you can give us a call at the office at 405-235-7537. We love to give tours to people. We love to show off what we do. I love to show off my team. This is an amazing, gifted group of people that just know how to connect with these kids and just put their heart and soul into helping them.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks, Cammie,
Thank
for
you.
coming in.
Thanks for having us.
It.
We appreciate it.
And I'm Melissa Howell with the Oklahoman.